and my need to save our love.
Just want to say, I like mocha pots. Number one problem with them, I can't fill them up without making an absolute mess. Okay, I just filmed a whole intro of me making coffee but I just filmed this slow-mo video of the coffee pouring, and I'm pretty sure that's better than the entire intro I just filmed, so I'm just gonna scrap the intro and show you guys that. Enjoy. Okay, 2 camera setup. This is new to me, even for when I was making more regular videos. But I think it's a cool way to do things. Today's video, what did you think of that slow-mo? Buttery smooth. I'm a huge fan. I got so excited. I filmed it. I was like, ah, it was amazing. Anyway, sorry. That's the whole video. It's done. What I'm going to talk to you guys about today. Yes, so kind of following on from last week's, or like 2 days ago's video, which it was about a comment that I received about my blue badge and my car, saying that I should be ashamed of myself. If you haven't seen that video yet, I don't know how to put a link to it, but it will be down in there somewhere, or just look it up. It's on my video. It's on my. You'll find it. What we touched on there was about having to prove your disability sometimes, and a lot of times the issue with this kind of stuff is to do with people's perceptions of disabled people and young people and everyone and types of disabilities, and looking at someone and saying, you're not disabled enough to park there, you're not disabled enough to have a blue badge, or, you know, these assumptions that people make. Are you actually disabled? Oh, you're too young to whatever. And are you actually disabled because you've got a nice car? You know, these assumptions that people make, which is what I want to talk about today, is a kind of topic that I got actually mentioned a couple of times, of people having to prove their disability, and it's something that I have to do sometimes, and it's quite demeaning, and it's gonna be today's theme. Being too disabled versus not disabled enough, because I feel like it's a problem that a lot of disabled people face, and maybe in other aspects of your life, if you don't have a disability and you're watching this, in other adversity and other challenges, whether or not, you know, some people say you're too this, you're too that, and then on the flip side, you're not enough, you're not this, and it's just boils down to people's perceptions of what someone should be, and I think that is quite damaging, and so I want to talk about that today. I've rolled the intro already. We're not doing it again. I think one of the biggest problems with this when it comes to disabilities is this sort of umbrella that all disabled people are under. And now, like, we're like a large group of people, and being disabled can vary so much from, you know, being blind, being deaf, being on crutches, being in a wheelchair, having no leg, having no arm, having other issues, and it's literally endless. And even amongst similar disabilities, so other people with the same disability as me, with, you know, if you have 10 people all with one leg, or 10 people all with one hand, or 10 people who are all blind, every single person will experience that disability differently. So it's honestly, it's mind-boggling, the possibilities and different variations of disability, and that doesn't go just for disability, it goes for everything. It goes for adversity that people face in terms of anxiety or depression or any of these things, you know. you get 100 people together that all have anxiety, I'm sure that they're all triggered by different things, they experience it in different ways, they have different experiences with the same diagnosis. And I think a real issue arises when people they group everyone and they make these assumptions based on what they know about disabled people, based on what they should be like. And when people don't fit into these kind of stereotypes with these characteristics that they have in their heads, it really fucks with some people, and they really think like, yo, well, there must be something wrong here. It's like when Neo saw there was a glitch in the Matrix and he saw two black cats. He was just like, that's weird. That shouldn't be happening. You get the idea.
What did you see?
A disabled person that doesn't fit the stereotypes or false assumptions that I made about them. And to visualize that slightly, which you know I really like to do, I feel like if you were to look at it like this, and people's disability, I feel like there's this level at which people feel as though this is how disabled someone would be. Crutches, or having, I don't know, no leg, you get the idea. And when someone else comes into this and they're maybe here, like they have all their limbs, or they are young, they're seen as being not disabled enough. So we can kind of group this into the not disabled enough. And then you have the bit above here where you're too disabled. Okay, I'm done, I'm back. I have this. Oh, there it is. It's very confusing, but you kind of just saw me drawing it. What I'm trying to say by this is that there's this medium line of what some people believe to be disabled, and this line changes for everyone. So, say for example, you have Jonathan, and Jonathan had a mother who was in a wheelchair. So for him, the line here is going to be someone disabled is someone in a wheelchair, and they have this idea of what a disabled person is like. So if someone comes along and they're not in a wheelchair, so for example they're crutches, they then fall into the category of not disabled enough to have a blue badge, for example. Or if someone comes along and they're in a wheelchair or has one leg or whatever, and they want to go into a shop, they want to go clubbing, they want to live their lives in a normal way, or they want to just, you know, drive somewhere, he'll make the assumption, Jonathan will make the assumption that that person is too disabled to do X, Y, or Z. And where this really comes into play is these damaging assumptions that people make. So some of the ones that I've experienced, for example, are that I'm too disabled to use the stairs. I go up to a building and I need to go to the first floor because I got a meeting, and someone says, you can't use the stairs, you need to use the lift. In which case I always have to then take the stairs to prove them wrong. I've seen it with people in wheelchairs. You're too disabled to push yourself. They see a disabled person going up the hill on a wheelchair and someone just comes up behind, grabs the wheelchair and starts pushing them. And they obviously think they're trying to help, but that's a very intrusive thing. It's hugely intrusive. A lot of people that I've met and spoken to in wheelchairs, they say, you know, I hate it when people don't like do that. And so, you know, if they need help, they'll ask. But it's people making this assumption that they're too disabled they need help. To drive. People always assume that I can't drive because I'm on crutches. And it's not just like, oh, I didn't know you could drive. It's in a sort of very negative connotation. So someone will say, oh yeah, Ollie drove us. And they'll be like, Ollie drove. Are you driving now? You can drive. You can't drive. And I'm like, I can drive. How do you drive? Automatic, like everyone else. Again, too disabled to drive. A more kind of societal one is to date. I think a lot of people see disabled people sometimes in this very non-threatening, non-sexualized way. And I think this again boils down to people seeing people with disabilities in a way that is non-sexualized, that we are not sexual beings like everyone else, and we, you know, are maybe too disabled to date, too disabled to see in a sort of rose-tinted way. I think you guys get what I mean. Again, another one, to work. Some people think you're too disabled to work here. You'll be a hindrance, you'll be this, you'll be that. And again, it creates these barriers. And another really practical one to end with is to do sport. I get it a lot. When I go to the gym, when I do Spartan races, people turning around to be like, huh, I didn't know you could do that. You need help. Again, it's people making false assumptions based on what they think they know about your disability and that you're too disabled to do whatever it is you might want to be doing. And on the flip side of that, we have not disabled enough, which is just as damaging. To have a blue badge. I had to prove my disability the first time I went to get a blue badge. I was really self-conscious about my disability, and I had to then sit in a room and prove to people why I was disabled enough. And having been on crutches for about 10 years at the time, since I was a kid, and not being able to walk without it, they said no. They said, you're not, you don't qualify for a blue badge. I then had to appeal it, and then, it got let through. But it just shows how some people will say, you're not disabled enough. I mean, how much more disabled do you want me to be? I can't walk without crutches. I think that's what qualifies as being disabled. To park there. I've been pulling up somewhere in my car and have the blue badge out, and someone says, are you actually disabled? Are you, that's the blue badge bay. Are you disabled enough to park there? To sit on that seat on the tube. Some people with invisible disabilities will be sitting on an accessible seat. Maybe they have something, like crutches with me, and or something, completely invisible, maybe like CP. And someone will say, that's the disabled seat, you're not disabled, you should say that for actually disabled people. And again, this fuels this idea of people not being disabled enough, being too disabled, and it just never being, in this sort of idealistic, perfectly disabled zone, which is completely unachievable because people keep moving the goalposts. Get disability support income. I don't personally get that, so I don't have much experience with it, but I feel like, again, it will be similar to the blue badge in that people have to prove their disabilities. And so what I'm trying to say with these kinds of things is that they're very damaging for several reasons. Because I'm not going to go through ABC because I'll forget what letter I'm on, then I'll look stupid. But first of all, it sort of creates and encourages judgment. People looking at other people and judging whether or not they're disabled or not disabled. And that's no one's decision to make, especially about someone they don't know, especially about someone based on their looks, because disabilities look so different and it can result in such hurtful, harmful things. And this camera's about to run out of battery. We'll see where it goes. It's dehumanizing, in my opinion. I feel like for someone with a disability to have to prove, something that they've struggled with, they've had sleepless nights, countless operations, constant pain, missed social events, missed friends, struggled financially maybe, whatever it might be, based on the fact they have they struggle with a disability or whatever it is, to then have to prove to people that they're disabled enough to live their lives in the way that they want to, or someone saying that they're not disabled enough, or saying something that they're too disabled, and then them saying, no, I can come into this club, I can come into this bar. I've been told many times, you can't come in here, mate, you're on crutches. Like, why? Why? I don't see why the fact that I'm on crutches, I can't come into a bar, I can't come into a restaurant, I can't be seated somewhere because it's up a flight of stairs. Ask. If the person says, yeah, there's no lift, there's only stairs, I don't want to do that, then that's okay. But it's so important to ask because everyone is different. Having to constantly prove people wrong, I think that's, again, it's very draining and exhausting for that person, Every time someone makes an assumption about me. If someone says, hey, by the way, there's a lift, I'll be like, fine, thank you. But when someone says, you have to take the lift, and trust me, this happens, or you can't park there, you're not disabled, it just frustrates me having to kind of have these little battles with people and prove them. It's just exhausting. Honestly, it is, and it's unnecessary, and it's not something that we should have to face every single day. And you know, you look at someone who's on crutches and you think, oh, you know, or you know, has an invisible disability, and you think, you know, it's just one-off. It's a one-off scenario, but it's a one-off scenario for you maybe, but for that person, they're experiencing it all the time with several different people all day. The amount of times I have to speak to people about my leg is astonishing. It's crazy. It creates barriers for disabled people and people living with disabilities, and it's not helpful. It's not productive, and it's not healthy, and it doesn't constitute to a kind of a fair way of living for people with disabilities. Work barriers, people getting jobs, people being, you know, I don't know what the numbers are exactly off my head, but the rate of disabled people who are unemployed is way higher than able-bodied people, I think. I'm pretty sure. You can check that out. I think I quoted it in another video. It creates barriers for disabled people to find love, to find a partner, because people maybe don't see disabled people in that, like I said, romantic manner. These barriers are things that disabled people have to face, and it's difficult, and it's annoying, and it's unnecessary in my opinion. It's just based on people's false judgments that this kind of stuff has to stop. That camera's just run out of battery. And I also believe that it's further disabling, because I'm a huge believer of the fact that we're disabled by our diagnosis, but we're actually more disabled by society, because, and again, this is just my opinion, but and it's different for everyone, but we all have our disabilities, and we all adapt, and we overcome whatever it is that we have, and we learn to live in a normal manner. That maybe it takes me a bit longer to get into a car than you, maybe it takes someone in a wheelchair to get in a little bit longer than me even, but it becomes their normal. Everyone reaches a state of normal and finds a way to live their lives. The problem then is when, oh, I forgot my train of thought. Ah, yeah. The problem then is actually not the disability, because you just learn to live with it, but it's actually society and the way that they perceive you. I think that is much more disabling than the diagnosis itself, personally. But again, this is just my experience. Anyway, what I wanted, and to conclude the video, because I've been chatting for a long time now, it's just very frustrating, this idea of either one day being too disabled to do something, and then the next day being not disabled enough. There's no grey area. We're always sitting on the fence of either being one or the other, you know, being too this, being too that, or not being enough. And it's a struggle, and it's unnecessary, and it's annoying, and it's based on people's judgments and false perceptions based on what they think they know about disability, which is usually incorrect. This kind of stuff has to stop. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today, how frustrating it is and how difficult it is. Again, I want to shed some light on these really annoying and difficult things and start a conversation with you guys about this kind of stuff. If you have any experience with it, let me know, chuck it down in the comments. I hope you guys are enjoying this a little bit more talky, chatty style video. It's kind of the best I can do in lockdown scenario at the moment. Anyway, guys, hope you're all healthy and are doing okay with the lockdown, and I'll see you guys next time.